We're doing this Love Does series because we just think love is a verb and love is action. And I came across this. I thought it was helpful to kind of summarize the whole Love Does thing as belief and actions create authenticity. The belief, whatever you believe, coupled with what you do creates authenticity. It creates confidence for you to know like, hey, I really do believe that because I'm like doing it. Or it creates authenticity for people around you, creates confidence for them that, that you love them or that you care about them or that you want to help. And so belief and action together create authenticity. We looked at that last week in a letter called 1 John that John wrote. He's one of Jesus' followers. And if you missed last week, you can pick it up on our app or online. It's always free and available to you. All of our messages are. And I said this last week that we have a tendency as people, and I don't know each and every one of you, but I would wager to guess that we underestimate our potential. That you underestimate your potential. And in part of this, that we're wired for greatness, yet we don't feel great all the time. That you're wired, like hardwired from the factory, default setting is greatness. And yet you believe, and I believe many a times it's different than that, in part because we have a messed up, a backwards version of greatness. And you can put it in any context you want. You can put it in your family context. You can put it in your work context. You can put it in our social, economic context. You can put it in fame and status and movie star context. You can put it in the church context, right? I mean, a lot of us come to church or have a perception of church and greatness as like a pyramid, and who's ever at the top is the lead guy, and our job is to like sit in pews and to prop up and promote the lead guy, right? Have you ever felt that, experienced that, maybe been part of a church? Jesus said this, he's going to be at the bottom, and it's going to be an inverted pyramid, and he's going to prop up and equip and empower every single person to go and reach the world for him. And we talk about that all the time around here. We do that in Starting Point, which is today. I mean, we just try to eat, sleep, and breathe that. So Jesus said this about greatness. In Mark 9 is captured for us. He sat everybody down, and I talked about this last week. Jesus called everybody who was there, the 12, and everybody in this house they were sitting at, and said, here, everybody, listen up. This is super important. So if you don't get anything else from today, here, listen up. Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all. There's Jesus' definition of greatness. If you want to be first, you want to be greatest, you want to be on top, be the servant of all, be very last, put other people's needs in front of your own. And I ended last week and this week, because I think it's a lifelong question. So this is where we'll start today and end today, is just asking and answering this question, how can I help? How can I help? That you're wired and hardwired default from greatness, how can I help? And that you would look for opportunities, see needs, and then humbly just somehow be a small part of helping that person, helping that group of people, meeting that need, that you would humbly do that. I got this email this last week, and I just thought I'd share it with you. They wrote it to me last Sunday, and just in response and hearing the message, so I thought I'd pass along. I thought it was helpful. And someone who said, how can I help? And it's just their story. Today's message really hit me today when I heard it again, how Marabou has served Trent Elementary. At the former church I went to, their youth group partnered with UGM for a summer camp. I can't pronounce the name of the summer camp, something to Schmecken. But it's a really good summer camp, I know that. All right, this camp gave underprivileged kids in Spokane the chance to have fun and learn about Jesus at no cost. They learned trust-building exercises, how to open up about problems at home, and how Christ loves them no matter the circumstances they are in. I started out helping in the kitchen when I was 13 and served over the next 5 years as being an assistant counselor, and then the summer before my senior year of high school, so I was 17, I was director and planned and directed the entire week. For the last 3 years of those 5 years, we partnered with Trent Elementary and spent a week with those students. After this camp was done, one of our biggest struggles was getting these kids to find a church to connect with, as our church was on the other side of the valley. Many of my former cabin girls have gotten connected at Marabou, and a few of them still go there. I've invested so many years staying connected with these kids, and now being 20 and looking in the pews and seeing some of those students that are now in high school and some in middle school, feeling the love of Christ means more to me than your staff will ever know. I've laughed with those kids, smiled and cried a lot with them, and those kids needed the love from Marabou after I couldn't do much more from where I was at as a high schooler. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for continued love on Trent Elementary. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories from students and families that have been there. I'm so thankful that you guys took over where I had to leave off with them God works in amazing ways and has given me the opportunity to see those kids grow and continue to follow Jesus years later, now that I attend Maribou. Thank you to all the church community for their continual giving and support, for the hurting and even those who don't think if they are hurting or not. It means so much. Thank you, Brooklyn. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. That's the power of we. That's the power of God at work, and as what we call as Christ followers, the body of Christ, or everybody doing their part, and someone saying, hey, how can I help? And then doing something with it. There's a belief and an action to create authenticity. And as you heard in that story, and our story is like, hey, we just want to do the best that we can love on the families that are part of our community, and how do we do that best? And like, we can't meet all their needs. And some of us that feel that like, hey, what about Trent kids? What happens to them during the summer, right? And then God's so awesome and so bigger than all of us. There's like all these summer people going, hey, we love on these kids at Trent. Like, what happens during the school year? Hey, we just found out something, good stuff's happened. It's so great. So this is week 2, and it's just, again, it's kind of one huge message in 2 parts. And so it just encourage you again to pick up last week's. But looking at this, how can I help? Love meets the deepest needs. And if you follow along, we have notes. You can write in the bulletin or on our app. There's notes available to you with some helpful stuff. But love meets the deepest needs. And I started reading this book called When Helping Hurts, and recognizing how I approach helping someone and recognizing what the actual needs are of people. And there's lots of different layers of needs, and they're all significant and all important. But don't want to hurt people and don't want to hurt individuals or families or groups of people when we're trying to help. And so this book, what they quote another book, they just went to the people who have low income in our world and talked to them about what it means to be a poor person or to live in poverty. That's a great idea. And they interviewed 60,000 people from 60 different low-income countries around the world. So I would say they got a good idea of poor people's view on what it means to be poor. When we say poor, I'm talking about low-income people and in their poverty. And here's a few different quotes from people from around the world talking about meeting their deepest needs. When I don't have any food to bring my family, I borrow, mainly from neighbors and friends. I feel ashamed standing before my children when I have nothing to help feed the family. I'm not well when I'm unemployed. It's terrible. Here's another one. For a poor person, everything is terrible. Illness, humiliation, shame. We are cripples. We are afraid of everything. We depend on everyone. No one needs us. We are like garbage that everyone wants to get rid of. It's pretty intense, isn't it? And the book goes on, and I'm just really capturing just a snippet of what was communicated as far as poor people's view. But it says this: poor people typically talk in terms of shame, inferiority, powerlessness, humiliation, fear, hopelessness, depression, social isolation, and voicelessness. That yes, they acknowledge there's a need for necessities, and they acknowledge their low income and a need for food. But when they talk about themselves and how they view themselves and what's the greatest need and the deepest need, and you talk about love into action, is they talk in these terms. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really relate well to someone from Moldova and how they live and their social context and their experience. I'm probably pretty hard-pressed to find it on a map right now, But I can relate to some of this. You ever have fear in your life? Do you ever have hopelessness? Do you ever feel socially isolated from the people around you, even in the midst of tons of friendships and social media chaos and people everywhere? Do you ever have a point of your life where you feel you have voicelessness, or that you feel inferiority to somebody else, or somebody's been trying to exercise their authority over you? Do you ever feel shame? Man, I can relate to those things. But yet North American, the book talks about this when helping hurts. North American audiences, usually middle to upper class North American audiences, people that are not from Moldova. So that would be like everybody in this room, right? Nobody from Moldova. So this is all of us. When North American audiences tend to emphasize a lack of material things, right? When love does, let's go help some poor people, some low-income people that exist in our culture and around the world. We emphasize a lack of material things such as food, money, clean water, medicine and housing, etc. That we usually don't talk about some of the deepest levels of need when you talk about helping somebody, that there's shame, that there's inferiority, that there's a lack of dignity and self-respect and being able to provide for themselves. And so this is just super challenging to what's the deepest need that we have as we approach Surf Saturday and the people that are in our community and around, just around us and your neighbors that live next door to you. It's well, there's probably not a lack of clean water for most folks, so I probably can't serve people well around me. I got to go somewhere. I got to go across the ocean or some other sort of context or some sort of downtown area or whatnot to find, someone that really needs money or food or housing or medicine. And we talk in those terms. But to meet the deepest need of someone is to acknowledge that, yes, these are true. Yes, there's people that just need a meal. And the people that were interviewed they're acknowledging, yeah, we need some food or we need some medicine or I need a house. But more than that is I need some dignity, some self-respect. And so when we're talking about meeting the deepest needs of people, and love does, we're going to put some action into it, sometimes we get frustrated. I've been frustrated, and you've probably been frustrated. You give some people some money, and then they don't seem grateful, right? Have you ever had that? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, 3 of us. That's awesome. Yeah. If you want to try it, give me some money, and I'll just act ungrateful today. So, I'll help you. But you give people money, you're that's what you were asking for. That's what you needed, right? And on the surface level, and yeah, maybe they had a bill that needed to pay, but they may not even be aware. Sometimes we're not even aware, what's the deepest need? It's I have a lot of shame attached with that. That's why I haven't asked you until the last second or till the bill's past due or till the power's going to get shut off today. Is because I got shame. I got lack of dignity and self-respect. I want to be empowered to provide for myself, right? Isn't that the foundation level? And so as we're helping people, the book says this, and I totally agree. It says, do not do things for people that they can do for themselves, because you're really ultimately hurting people in the long run. And just real quickly, they talk about this. There's kind of 3 different levels when we're talking about meeting the deepest needs of people and helping people and not hurting them. There's relief, there's rehabilitation, and there's development. And there's a huge difference here. And all of them are very important. All of them are significant and needed. There's relief happening in Haiti right now, right? There's need for shelter and clean water and all those kinds of things. But then there's going to be a need for Haiti to get rehabilitated again. And then there's going to be need for the rehabilitation process to include the local people, to empower them, to teach them about proper construction techniques and how to have clean water and, those different kind of things as you rehabilitate, work with people and meet their deepest level of need, and then to develop people. This one's real flashy and fun, and hey, we feed, right now we just upped it, there's 20 more kids at Trent Elementary, so we're every single Friday, starting this week, delivering 140 meals to kids at Trent Elementary to love on them well, right? Yeah. Because there's food insecurity, but you know what? That's important, and we should keep doing that, but there's also a need for development, right? With families and as best as we can, do our part. And God's working on my heart. And what's our next step as a congregation that we don't keep doing things for people that they could do for themselves. And it's really, really hard and super, super messy when you're talking about a 7-year-old that's in 2nd grade and they don't have really confidence to have food on a weekend, right? And it's not the 7-year-old's fault. And so what do? Something, right? Love's a verb. We're doing something. We're doing relief, but can we do some rehabilitation? Can we develop people? If I feed my kids when they were born, because they didn't know how to use a spoon, right? You feed them, and then you can't yell at a 1-year-old, pick up the fork and cut the steak. Come on, right? That just doesn't make sense. And so there's a need for relief. You're hungry, I'll feed you. If I kept feeding Hayden, who's now 10, I just feed every single meal. I just want to provide relief because I love you. Right? I'm going to feed you every single meal because that's what you need. You need food, and I'm going to love you. We're going to have an awkward first date when he goes out for the first time, right? and he there, picks up the girl, and they go, and they show up at the restaurant. I'm like, over here, buddy, over here. So, what is he doing here? Oh, he feeds me. Your dad feeds you? Yeah, every single meal because he loves me. Right? Yeah, well, that's silly. That's funny. It's no, that's not love. That's anti-love. You hate your kid if you don't develop them to teach them to eat on their own. And so this is huge. We don't want to hurt people, but we want to help people. We want to meet their deepest needs and their I don't even want to say shallow need, because it is so important to eat every single day. It's so important to have clean water. So I don't want to contrast saying that's not a deep need. It's just a different kind of deep need, that there is a definite need for food, shelter, clothing. That just is important for every single person. And so so we want to do all of the above. And that's why it's not like so black and white and clear, this whole love thing. And then when you talk about meeting people's deepest needs and helping with clean water and housing, to do it, love does with humility. And if you're a Christ follower, like, we just look at Jesus and go, he humbled himself and he showed up and he gave of himself, the King of Kings. And maybe you don't recognize God as king in your life, but I do, and faith's a big thing for me. And I just think if I'm going to look at somebody who humbled themselves and loved people well, I'm going to look at Jesus and his life, and I'm going to do the things that he did and how he did things. And he said this about being humble as we try to meet the needs of people, whether it's dealing with their shame or clean water, where it's somebody across the street or across an ocean, that we would do it with humility, that I would work at being the next best, humblest version of myself tomorrow. And he said this, Jesus said this, he's got his group of followers around and said, "Watch out!" There's the exclamation point, so yeah. Don't do your good deeds publicly, to be admired by others, for you will lose the reward from your Father in heaven. When you give to somebody, however it pans out, whatever need you're meeting, when you give to somebody in need, don't do as the hypocrites do, blowing their trumpets. Like, look at me, here I go, making a sacrifice, meeting a need. They do that in church. They do that in the streets. They're just doing it all over the place. They post it, on social media, and they get on camera, and they're just trying to draw attention to themselves and their acts of charity. Like Jesus goes on to tell you the truth. Those people, they're great. They're covered. They received all the reward they will ever get. But if you want something greater than that, if you want to really sacrificially give and do that and get a reward, he says this. But when you give to someone in need, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you. And so Jesus is saying, hey, listen, you guys see these people over here who just give and say, I gave, and you kind of put off by that. Like, okay, well, don't be like that. When you give, don't put a return address on the envelope. Just send it. But when you give, put it on the doorstep, ring the bell, and then run away. But make sure something good on the doorstep, Some of you were thinking it. I just had to say it. All right, so give love well. When you do something nice or you want to pass it along, give it to somebody else and have them give somebody else, and then they give it to the person you're trying to give it to, so they can't follow it back to you. Don't let yourself get caught up in this arrogant, boastful situation. Is Jesus saying every single time I can't go to Bruce and say, Bruce, I'm going to do something nice for you? No, Jesus isn't saying that. You can't take this too literal. Jesus is talking about our heart condition here. Because Jesus did that publicly. He healed people. And he did great works in front of tons of people. So did Jesus do that? Yeah, publicly, you bet. Did Jesus know what he was doing? You bet. What he's driving at is when you love well, is when you just come from a humble state. And externally, don't be so flashy and arrogant. Because it's so fun, isn't it? And you've done this, right? You give, and people just don't know, or they kind of know, but they're not sure. And you just love it. Doesn't it have a different level of satisfaction to it when you love that way? And then there's this internal part to humility. That yes, it's the internal drives the external, and sometimes we can be externally humble or looking humble, but I think too, internally we can be full of arrogance. And when you talk about helping people, that we have compassion with people, we have empathy with people, and we jump in with where they're at, and with walk in their shoes, get to where they're at, and they're going through a loss of a loved one, and you have some empathy because you've been there before, and you jump in with people. And what is that? That's recognizing my own need internally, and my own brokenness. And as a Christ follower, we wrestle with that and go, thank you, Jesus, for restoring me. That there's an internal brokenness in all people, and there's a brokenness in our society and in the world, and that's what we experience, and that's why we got to do this love thing super well, is there's broken relationship between you and I, that God came to fix. There's broken relationship between God and myself that Jesus came to fix. That there's broken relationship between me and just the planet that Jesus came to fix. That there's broken stuff inside of me that Jesus came to fix. And as he restores that and as he renews that and makes you a new creation because of Christ, that we don't become arrogant on the inside, that somehow I did something to get to this better place. And so as I go to love somebody, that junk of my arrogance shows up. And like, oh, I'm going to pity you, and I'm going to love you like Jesus did with my looking down my nose at you. Like Jesus never looked down his nose at people. He showed up. And as a reminder, for me, I always just try to remember, I didn't do anything to get here. And here being restored in right relationship with God and empowered and equipped to do the things that God wants to do. It's all Jesus. It's all him. And the moment I think it's somebody else or that I did something else, man, boom, arrogance starts shooting up. And then my ability to love others humbly goes out the window super quick. And it's a constant, battle, and it's a constant wrestling match with me and my flesh and relying on Jesus. And in Romans 3, Paul gets to this, and maybe you've heard this many a times, but maybe you'd hear it differently today. And maybe you've heard this will be the very first time you've ever heard it. But that brokenness that exists between God and I and you and I and myself and the planet and just that restoration that needs to happen, it's all Jesus. And Paul writes this letter and says, it's all Jesus. We're all broken, and then Jesus fixed us all. And if you want in on that action, all you got to do is believe in Jesus. And then he does it, and he did it, and he did the work, and then you're restored. And then he says this kind of at the end of the chapter 3. He goes, well, can we boast then? Because I'm better than you people. Can we have some arrogance there? He goes, no, you can't boast. Because what have we done? What have we done? Jesus went to the cross, he humbled himself, he paid for our sins, and then he showered us with love and with grace, and he wooed us to himself, and he drew us to himself with grace and mercy, and then he gave us the faith to respond to him. So what have I done? Nothing. So what have I done? Anything to be accepted by God? No. Nothing. No. Zero. If you're still trying to live your life to try to get acceptance with God by your own efforts, take Paul's advice and just go, no, there's nothing that I can do to be more accepted by God. To have humility, to come and to the King of the universe and go, there is brokenness inside of me. There's brokenness in my relationships in this world, and I just look out and I don't see a lot of love. And what is that? That is Jesus came to restore and going to make everything right. Have I done anything in my own life to make myself right? No. Because our acquittal, you're free from it all. You're free to go. You could walk out of the court as a free man. Our acquittal is not based on obeying the law. It's not based on my efforts, my good works, nothing. It's based on faith in Jesus. It's the power of Jesus at work, and I put my faith in him. So we are made right with God through faith and not by obeying the law. That you and I, if you're a Christ follower, are made right and are able to and have the love that is God inside of us to give to other people. And it's all God. It's all Jesus. He did everything. So love does with external and internal humility, and I don't even know if those two are separated, but I just thought it's helpful for me, so maybe it's helpful for you to go inside as I approach people to help them, that I recognize that I was broken and Jesus restored me, and it's all him and his ability to have wisdom or compassion with people. That's all God is the source of my life, and so internally, and I'm going to let that come out externally, and I'm not going to try to portray that I'm better than you because I'm not, because it's all Jesus. He did everything, and what can I boast about? What can I be arrogant about? Nothing. And so love does with humility, inside and out, and how we help people. And then love does with passion. Love does with passion. Don't get the wrong idea here, but going through the closet the other day and found this love card that I gave to Amy at Valentine's Day, okay? That's not the kind of passion we're talking about. We've got to kind of just stick with me. But it's just cute. This little girl and this little boy. Why is it so cute when kids dress up like adults? I don't know, but it's kind of fun. They're walking on the beach. He's got flowers. And I was like, that's nice. She saved it for me or for her or whatever. And it says, Amy, I got you this card because I'm supposed to on Valentine's Day. Love, Scott. P.S. I bet your hair looks great and your outfit is super cute. Isn't that a nice love letter? Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that love? You know? Isn't that passionate love? No, it's not passionate love. And I just totally made that up. It's completely blank, all right? Jeez. No, that's not passionate love like I'm supposed to, right? It's Valentine's Day. When are the right holidays to get cards? I want to make sure I get those. No, you've got passions and gifts and talents, things that just fire you up, built inside of you. Again, hardwired from the factory, like put in there by God, your designer, like you're built for greatness. He wants to do amazing things in you, and you need to be who God's created you to be and be the best version of you. And we talk about this all the time, like quit looking to the left, quit looking to the right, like see what God has for you and go after that and just be comfortable in your own lane and do the things that God has done in you and for you, and as you work together with others, because it's not just all about you, and you're not going to solve everybody's problem, but you're going to be a part of it. And so what can we do together? And God said here, we are God's handiwork. Like you are a masterpiece of the King of the universe, and we together are this amazing thing, this group of people that He's created, and we're just this wonderful, beautiful masterpiece He's created. And He's created us in Christ, Jesus, to do good works. And He wants you to get restored to Him, acknowledge your need, that you're broken and you need God and there's something been missing in your life, and you come to Him, that you're created, that He's got stuff which God prepared in advance for us to do. Like we got stuff to do. That love's a verb. Like we got things to do. And so what fires you up? What are you passionate about? What are you excited about? When you think about what it means to love somebody, like what is your lane? Like what are the things that God's doing in your life in this season? And maybe it was something totally different now for you. You know, you did something for a number of years and now you're thinking like, that doesn't really get me fired up anymore. Do I not love God, or is that not a gift? He's maybe got something totally different for you, or a different track right now in this season of your life, and maybe it's a year or 2 years or who knows how long, but He's got something different for you. And as us as a church, like we exist to help like fire you up and get you motivated in doing those things to love people well. Because you're at your best when you're doing the things you love the most. And we are at our best when everybody's doing their part and that God's gifted them for and fired them up. And so maybe this has helped clear it up for you, but later in this letter called Ephesians in chapter 4, it talks about different roles and how this works. And it says this, that now these are the gifts Christ gave to the church. There's apostles, there's prophets, there's evangelists, there's pastors and teachers. And don't ever be confused and don't ever let anybody tell you, and I know I'm telling you right now, so this is kind of a tricky one, but don't let anybody tell you, especially a person on a stage with a microphone, that it's a positional thing. Like that you're not a pastor because you don't hold the title of a pastor at Marywood Chapel. There are so many pastors that exist, and many of you know this, and you function that way. Don't let anybody tell you you're not a teacher just because you don't have a teaching degree or that you don't have a position that's a teacher. You're a teacher. So God gave you as a gift to the other people in the church, which is people, right? This gift of teaching. And some of you are evangelists, and you're 50 times the evangelist that I'll ever be, and you need to be like working hard to help the church grow. All right, it's not a positional thing. And their responsibility, so your responsibility is to equip God's people to do His work and to build up the church, the body of Christ. That our job is to say, what's in it? What does God have for you? Like you're a masterpiece, and come alongside somebody and to love them humbly and say, you're awesome. And let me just kind of like fan the flame of that. Like what has God given you? What is the gift and the opportunities? What are you fired up about? And what meets the needs as you look at somebody and say, how can I help? And you see a need and you're like, I'm going to do something about that. And sometimes I get it. Sometimes the frustration is like, okay, I'm going to be part of a church and it only works in this little framework right here. Okay? Right? Like it only looks like if you're serving this way or you can function this way. We're not tapped out as a church with the potential. Like nobody around here is thinking this is it and we're trying to contain and conserve. Like you see stuff that's not happening around here and it kind of frustrates you and you think maybe I should go somewhere else where it's happening. Well, maybe God's put you here and has you here to like help us do that better. And for you to get going on that. And I bet if you get going on that, there's other people who are feeling the same thing and like we should be doing that. And yes, we should be doing that because that's your role. And you look sometimes to the leadership or to myself or to Craig or somebody else and go, why aren't you doing it? And I would say, well, why aren't you doing it? And we could go back and forth, but what has God given you the responsibility of, in order to equip God's people, to do the work, to love on people, to help them and say, how can I help? And then to respond that way. Like God's put something inside of you I don't think anybody's done until you're dead. So if you're breathing today, like God's got something for you. Like He's got something next. And what is that? Like, let's explore that. Like, let's take the next step in what Jesus is saying as our church community, and like, let's go that way. And what does that look like? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but it sure is fun following Jesus, and it's a huge adventure. And so maybe it's Surf Saturday. Maybe that's one of your lanes that you're loving. And so if you haven't signed up for Surf Saturday, sign up. Like, let's love our community well. I was just emailing back and forth Friday and Saturday with the principal next door, and he's excited about us coming over and helping paint some lines, and it just would mean so much to him, and it's something that he's been trying to do. And I said, how can we help? He said, there's lines that need to get painted. I said, I'm going to rally some troops, and so no pressure, but don't let me down, all right? Come on, people. No, let's not let the kids down and loving on them. So sign up. If you want to sign up, if you got more questions, come talk to me right afterwards. There's a info flyer on your seat. You're probably sitting on it, all right? Last thought here, and it's kind of a full circle thought all the way back to the beginning. Love does with love. Love does with love. I know, it's kind of redundant. Love does with love. Babe, I got you a card because I'm supposed to, because that's love. Right? I was really passionate about going to Hallmark, picking out this card and writing it. Like, no, I wasn't. I did it because I want to make sure I cover all of the holidays that are appropriate for me to get you a card. That's not love, right? But yet we take that, and then we just apply that to our relationship with God and with other people. And it gets getting complicated and kind of complex at times, but we approach it with that kind of simplistic, well, I'm supposed to. So I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to do it with any passion, and I'm not going to love people well. But I want to make sure I check the box. And again, back to that earlier part where it's like, no, I'm going to try to make sure I check the box that I'm good to go with God. Like, I want to make sure God and I are okay. Like, you and I cannot be okay. That's kind of a bummer, and I wish it was different. But if I want to be okay with somebody, I'm going to be okay with God. I want to make sure I'm spiritually right. And so we have this kind of checklist. So this has happened all the time. And so when Jesus walked the planet, he got the holiday card question. He said, Jesus, what holidays do I absolutely need to get my wife a card on? It's a little different question, but they were still asking that. God, I want to check the boxes on loving people well. I want to check the boxes with you, with God. Like, what's the most important thing? And he said this. Here's the most important thing. Here's the very most important thing. So this would be something you should all write down. Like, if you want to get a pen out right now, that would be great. You could write this down. It says, listen up, everybody. He's quoting Deuteronomy here. He says, listen up, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. So there's one true God. There's lots of this chatter out there. There's a bunch of gods. There's a bunch of lords. But there's one true God, one true Lord. So listen up and take note. You must love that God, your Lord, with all of your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And I just imagine them like writing that down and going, okay, that's good. Yeah, I've heard that before. Right, write that down, write that down. So they're gonna take some notes here. They're asking these questions. They're going to go, okay, love God. That's the most important thing. Check. I got that written down. And they're waiting. They're looking at him. Oh, he's going to say more. Oh, you got more. All right, he goes, the second is equally. Like, you can't have the first without the second without the first. Like, they're equal, like they're together. The one means two means one. Like, loving God means loving people. If you love people well, you're loving God. Like, it's just equally important. Like, they go hand in hand. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does with love. Like, love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. And they said, all right, I got to love God. I'm going to add to that love people. Got it. All right, so love God, love people. Awesome. And these are people that had grew up like trying to follow God, most of them, right? And they're trying to figure out what's the order, what's the schematic, make sure it's all in place. And they got the right commandments in the right order, doing the right things. So they want to be right with God. And so they have this framework, this view. So they're like, okay, I got it. Love God, love people. So that means it looks like this. I'm gonna make sure I do all the right things. So I'm going to check those off the box first, because that's what it would mean. So it would look like this. I'm going to serve others. I'm going to make sure I'm in community group. I'm praying regularly enough. I don't know if my prayers are right. Pastor just talked about it's like I'm always asking when I pray this morning, so I should like thank God. Like maybe I should mix that up a little bit. Maybe I should, if I haven't been baptized, Bible study, I make sure I definitely got to give some money, right? And then I got to make sure Sunday attendance is going strong. Whew. Anybody else feeling that? Like, okay, so they heard Jesus and they said, all right, this is what it looks like. So then I can prop up my love God and love people thing. Because I don't want to mess that up. But it starts with all this other stuff, right? Isn't that what it means to follow God? Isn't that what it means to be right with God? If I want to go through a checklist of what it means to love God. Well, loving people, though, it can't, Scott, now time out. Can't you just like serve others? Isn't that loving people? So I should start with, serve, and then it props up. And Jesus is just kind of like, no. I mean, they're going like, what are the right holidays? Like, and I just got to get a card from my wife that says I'm supposed to, so I gave it to you, so I'm good to go. And if you live your life that way, and if your view of God is this way, it's always burdensome and difficult and agonizing and inconvenient to love people and to love God. If you live your life with this kind of foundation, and you could expand this, and I'm just picking on a few things, and I'm trying to be an equal offender. So I'm just trying to offend everybody this morning. You can put whatever you want, but if you live that way, trying to love others, that you're obligated, you got to do your right things, do the good things, to be right with God and do the right things, because you want to love people. Well, that's big and that's important. And Jesus says, rewind. Okay, let's go back to that love God, love people thing. Let's go back to love God, love people thing. Well, what does that look like? We talked about relief and rehabilitation and development of people. And well, what does that look like? Yeah, it's kind of messy. Do we give them food or not give them food? Yes. Okay, that's not real helpful. Like, do I enable my adult child who's, I'm bailing them out all the time financially or emotionally? Like, I feel like they figured it out. Should I bail them out right now? Yes and no. Jesus, that's not super hard. Like, give me a checklist. What does it mean to love a person? So if it goes back to the foundation of love God and love people, what does it mean to love that person? Yeah, it's messy at times. It's uncertain. It means this one day and it means that another day. What does it mean to love the people around me? I feel the need to help everybody. You're not going to help everybody. Help somebody, though. You don't have to go across the ocean. Go out your front door and look left or right or go across the street. I don't know. You pick. Do something. Love people. Well, what's after that? I don't know. But it'll be the next best version of you of loving people and the humblest version of you that follows. And that's what Jesus has for you. And so then when you build your life of serving people and of praying and a Bible study and whatever you want to put on your giving and groups, and then you have a proper foundation, then you could do those things. Then that's what it means to follow Jesus. That's what it means to love people, is to love well. And you can build your house. I made a little house because I thought it was cool, but I don't know if you do. But it's house. And there's wins and there's losses. Amy used to work for an orthodontist when we lived in the Seattle area. His name was Dr. Wrencher. Like, yeah, come to Dr. Wrencher for orthodontics. I know. Isn't that crazy? Like, I'm 8. You want to meet Dr. Wrencher? No. He's a great guy. He was generous and caring, and there's great staff, and Amy loved it. And we literally lived 1 block away, and she'd walk to work, and there was a bunch of ladies, at the front desk, and ladies that would help, and she would help and do all the stuff. And they'd always go to lunch, and every time there was a birthday, they would celebrate people's birthdays well in the office and go out to lunch and just make a big deal, and a bunch of ladies. And then it was Dr. Wrencher's birthday was coming up, and so they're going to go to lunch. And it's like, well, we could just have lunch at our house. I'll cross the street. I'll do some burgers. I'll take time off. It'll be great. And he didn't really want to do birthdays, but we thought, it'd be fun. And so when he, babe, we should do something. We should get some balloons or cake. And so we thought, let's love him well. Let's get balloons and let's do fun stuff. And we had an old picture of him that wasn't super flattering. We put that up. We said a happy birthday. When he showed up, if he could have cussed me out, in front of everybody, I think he did inside, but he didn't do it outside. But it was the worst thing ever. It was awkward 30 minutes of lunch, and it was horrible, and didn't go well at all. I mean, bad. I'm just was thankful I didn't have to go back to the office and finish the day out with him. He didn't want to get celebrated at all, and it was bad. I mean, I'm not even joking. He was mad. He was angry. We're just trying to love people well, right? So did that create who I am as a person? Is my identity based on if it worked or didn't work? No, because Jesus already told me who I am. Did it go bad, which means I'm a loser? No. I mean, if it went really awesome, does that mean I'm a huge winner? No. Jesus already told me who I am. Does that mean we're going to quit throwing birthday parties for people? No. We still do that. Do they all work out well? No. Do we miss birthdays? Yeah. But do we try and love people? Yeah. It's what it means to love people. It's messy and it's crazy at times, but it's so awesome and so rewarding. It's what we need to do. And as you live your life this way, everything else like works itself out. That just base everything on loving God and loving people. And when you love like Jesus loves people, don't worry, you're going to get criticized and you're going to get misunderstood. And if you're getting criticized by people and misunderstood by people because they didn't see your love as like equal and they're looking at this and that, you're probably on the right track then. So just feel good that there's people that are hating on you because you're trying to follow Jesus and love people well, and it just doesn't work for them and their framework. So you're probably on the right track. So to just sum it up today, be humble. For this is for all of us, for you and I. Be humble as you love everyone by serving them with the gifts and in the opportunities God has given you. That truly, if we follow Christ and just go and love God, love people, and get on an adventure with Jesus, that we would be humble people, loving people to the deepest needs, meaning all of their needs, whatever that means in the moment. Recognizing that they may be asking for a ride or for some food or for some money, but they're looking for a friend. They're looking for somebody to care. They're looking for somebody to empower them, to not have I depend on everybody and I have no self-worth and no dignity. What does it mean to love everyone well and serve them with the gifts that God's given you, your abilities, your passion? Don't try to sound and act like somebody else, like be you. And as us together, we can do amazing things in the opportunities God has given us. So ask and answer this question, and for the rest of your life, how can I help? And it'll be a fun adventure with Jesus as you're loving people. Let's pray. Jesus, we're thankful that you love us.